Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I'm with Yashovardhan Azad, a former top cop in the government of India, Secretary Security, a former Central Information Commissioner, and somebody who started a think tank called Deep Strat, and Sidharth Luthra, a senior advocate at the Supreme Court, a former additional Solicitor General during the UPA government, and someone who specializes in matters relating to fundamental rights, electoral reforms, and other policy issues. Gentlemen, welcome to the Print Debates. And today we're discussing the matter around Aryan Khan, the son of Shah Rukh Khan, 23 years old, who has been in judicial custody since the 3rd of October. He was arrested on the 3rd, ostensibly because he was carrying drugs or was part of a rave party on a ship bound for Goa. We know all this information right now. The drama has been on our TV screens day in and day out for the past 2-3 weeks. The latest is that on Friday afternoon, Ananya Pandey, another young Bollywood actress, was summoned by the Narcotics Control Bureau, the NCB, to ask her questions about Aryan Khan, whether she participated in any taking of drugs along with Aryan Khan, if that happened, when that happened, what kind of drugs did they take, who was their supplier. So to you, Mr. Yashovardhan Azad, the first question, what do you think is going on 3 weeks after Aryan Khan and 2 of his friends were picked up from this boat bound for Goa? The cops still haven't figured out what he is being charged with. Your first comments.
Well, I certainly agree that it has been inordinately a long period for the NCB to come up with anything concrete. And therefore, this period of incarceration has gone on pretty long. Mm-hmm. But initially, when he was arrested on the 3rd of October, and initially when the police remand was given, and later on the remand was sought to be extended, I would say that at the initial stage, the remand given was legitimate. It was legitimate because, first of all, he was as the judge has agreed, and I read his order, that he was in conscious possession. He was a great friend of the person with whom the quantity of cannabis or charas was seized. He was also very well in knowledge of what is happening. And that is why at that particular point of time, it was correct. But now I feel even the last remand which was given was a little odd, because police had enough time, maybe for about 2 weeks, to investigate and come up with something. And, all cases cannot come up successful in investigation. So what is not there is not there. So I do feel at this point of time, he deserved bail.
Mr. Luthra, your first comments. Aryan Khan has been in judicial custody for the last 3 or so weeks. The Bombay High Court in the coming week is going to pronounce whether he should get bail or not. But nobody has still, the police has still not said, or the NCB, the Narcotics Control Bureau, has alleged or accused him of indirect possession of drugs. They didn't find anything on him in this particular case. Can they still hold him like this? What's the law?
Let me clarify 2 things. First, the Bombay High Court has issued notice, and it is to hear the matter. Once it hears the matter, then the judgment will come in due course. The faster, the better, of course, for the all parties concerned. Having said that, there's one thing you need to understand, and I must add to what Mr. Azad said. He's a man of great experience and great depth in terms of investigative processes, one of the rare few experts we have on great issues. Now, the point we need to understand is that so far as the term conscious possession is used, now NDPS, the Narcotics Act, requires you to have actual possession. It can't be, Jyoti, that the 3 of us are moving together at a party and you are possessed of drugs and Yasho and I get arrested. That would really not be perhaps very appropriate or valid. The issue of joint possession, which is now termed conscious possession, frankly, is a term when, that is to say, A possesses, B is present, is something which may be subject of a conspiracy charge or an abetment charge. That's a separate issue. but you can't reverse the burden of innocence on such a person. If I or any individual is possessed of drugs and found to be possessed of contraband, the burden reverses and you have to show your innocence. Otherwise not, and that too only if it's commercial quantity beyond a certain specified large amount. In this case, it had to be more than, I think, a kilogram. And what I was told is found on one of the boys at the party was 7 grams, which is less than small quantity. So the restrictions on bail, special restrictions don't apply. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I think we need to understand there's a pattern here. This is not the first NCB action. This is not the first action on drugs. It happened first in that Riya Chakravarti case, then it happened in Bangalore with an actress and some others. And the third case was in Chhattisgarh. And a majority of these cases, what they're focusing on are people who may have at some time had contact or perhaps even may have at some time utilized drugs, recreational drugs, but very few of them were found with actual possession. Mm-hmm. The tragic part is because we make out this large conspiracy issue and judges are sought to be, and I don't say they get overawed, but sought to be overawed by it. Bails are not granted and we are reaching the Supreme Court. In the Bangalore case, it took 145 odd days before bail could be granted in a case where there was no recovery from the individual. Now, this issue needs to be dealt with because after all, specialized agencies like the NCB have been set up to deal with large-scale transactions of export, import, manufacture of drugs. I really want to ask them, when was the last time they had such an issue? And I'm told the last time was perhaps 2018 or so. So I think we need to look at policing in a slightly different way. We also need to look at it from the perspective that, assuming that there are WhatsApp chats, I've not seen the record, but I'm assuming that's what the grapevine is. If there are WhatsApp chats, those are subject matter for verification process. Is that a reason to keep a person in custody? And this is not about a child who we are debating because he is somebody prominent son. What about the hundreds of sons and daughters who face similar actions and for whom there is no public debate?
So, Mr. Azad, the question to you is, why is it that the NCB cops, why are they continuing to hold this young man, Aryan Khan, and not just him, two of his other friends, Arbaz Merchant and Munmun Dhamicha? Why are these three people still continuing to be held on allegations that he allegedly possessed a certain amount of drug? I mean, I think one of them was found with a small quantity. Now, we are not getting in hair splitting into how much is small and how much is big. But if there's no charge against them, then why is the judge of the NCB court, the special court, continuing to hold them? I think that's the point.
Well, there are two issues here. One is, of course, the investigation or the raid by the NCB initially and their apprehension. And second is the bail order and why it was refused. See, if you look at it right in the beginning, this cruise was on its international third leg. This cruise was going from Bombay to Goa, and it had a complement of youngsters and other people who were ultimately arrested. And it was not only 6 grams. You're rightly talking about not only this group, but the other group. The other group, it also had 22 MDMA pills, which are supposed to be very, very potent and are actually used for rave parties. Okay. So the entire scenario which was given to a judge was that here is a gentleman who was going with his best friend to a particular pace. So obviously both of them knew what exactly they were going for. And one of them was found in possession of 6 grams or 7 grams, whatever it was. There were other friends were also on that ship. Later on, the WhatsApp chat showed the contact of this particular person with the foreign drug peddlers, and also they also gave the name of one of the suppliers who was also arrested, one Nigerian on the ship and one Nigerian outside. Okay. And also the WhatsApp chat also revealed that some bulk trading or the bulk purchases had been done before. And that is why, on the basis of it, the NCB wanted further investigation. So the judge initially, on the basis of this, gave remand, and I think there was nothing wrong with that. Okay. As far as the and rightly so, the NCB will do a thorough investigation. Obviously, it's not going to say that, okay, bail should be given. So in that respect, I think the first remand was absolutely right. But there is a limit to the period of investigation which you allow for unearthing something. Sidharth is absolutely right. WhatsApp chat had to be supported with some supporting gear. You just can't have WhatsApp evidence showing nothing. It's not in the air. First of all, it has to be authenticated correctly. And secondly, it should lead to something. Now, what has happened is that after 14 days, nothing has come out. There are many hardened criminals, in fact, against whom, if you don't have any evidence, you can't do anything about it. So in this case, I agree. The period even of sentencing would be less than 1 year. Therefore, it is the right time for them to go on bail. As to what are the reasons as to why the judge did not give, yes, it could be that initially they are overawed in such situations, but we should also look at other cases of Salman, for example. He got bail immediately in many cases. So it works both ways. In this case, it is unfortunate, but I would say that it is completely on the honorable magistrate and the judges to give bail or not, and perhaps they went the NCB way in this case.
Mr. Luthra, isn't this a violation of privacy or of fundamental rights? Privacy in the case of WhatsApp chats is supposed to be encrypted from end to end. And second of all, there's a lot of connections that are being forcibly made, in my opinion, of course, by the NCB cops. You're summoning Ananya Pandey because she allegedly had this conversation on WhatsApp with Aryan Khan, where she said, he supposedly asked her for drugs or something, for charas, and she said, I can raise. Now she's being summoned for the second time on Friday afternoon. So there's a lot of these sort of allegations in the air. So isn't this a straightforward violation of your fundamental rights?
Absolutely not. I think...
absolutely not. You're saying
absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is no violation of fundamental rights.
Okay.
The issue is that any investigation should go on and can go on. And as long as it's not a fishing inquiry, it should go on within the four corners of the law. Having said that, the point that we have to debate and consider is the material enough to justify arrest? Is the material enough to justify remand? And is the material enough to justify refusal of bail? And that is where I believe the material is wanting. So therefore, it is not that if an offense takes place, an individual of interest can be put to an investigation. Undoubtedly, they can. In fact, Section 160 of the CRPC says any person acquainted with the facts of the case can be called. But that does not imply that you have to be arrested or have to be put to custody. So calling Ananya Pandey is not the issue. But seeking to extort a confession from somebody or seeking to create a hypothesis of guilt in the absence of material, in the absence of anything in his bloodstream. They've not even done a blood test for the young man. If you've not done a blood test, then where is the basis to say he's even a consumer, let alone a seller? Mm-hmm. And that's the rub of the issue. And that's what needs examination.
So the question to both of you is, and if Mr. Luthra, you can go first, what's the message in this? Well, Mr. Luthra...
So the message in this, as Yasho said, was he was with a good friend. The problem is sometimes places where we go, the company we keep lends us to trouble. This seems to be an unfortunate situation where the company has led to a young man's trouble. And unfortunately, it can happen to anybody. The only issue is the extent of trouble is terrible. This should not be happening in the absence of any contraband being found in a person. There were hundreds of people at that party. Others did not have contraband. A question needs to be asked, why did you single out a few? That's the difficulty when you're the son of a celebrity or a celebrity yourself. So therefore, it is always problematic when such cases occur, because these are what we would call hard cases. And you really become a vehicle for the resolution of the law. But that doesn't serve or protect you from the period spent in custody.
So, Mr. Azad, what is the message? The same question I asked Mr. Luthra. Why are the cops doing something? I mean, do you think that they're going on a fishing expedition? Why pick on a few young people just because Aryan Khan is the son of Shah Rukh Khan? Let's name Shah Rukh Khan and say, is it because he's the son of Shah Rukh Khan that this is happening?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I mean, Shah Rukh Khan has done perhaps nothing which should disturb the government or should upset the government at all. I mean, if at all anything has happened, it has happened at the NCB officers level. And I can also admit that NCB botched up the investigation at many points by using people as witnesses who were overexcited in catching Aryan Khan and taking photographs themselves. Of course, it does not detract from the basic issue, but it puts NCB in a poor light that what kind of professionals you have who are doing this kind of investigation. My second point is, something related to what Sidharth said, that, there is this concept of a VIP in such rave parties. These celebrities are invited to these rave parties to popularize these things. After all, as I told you, there were MDA pills found, 22 MDA pills. That is lethal. That is supposed to be for ecstasy or whatever rubbish they call it over there. And another thing, the third point is no VIP carries his own luggage. So no VIP or a top drug peddler or a financer will carry drugs with himself. And that is why when the judge agreed with that conscious possession, which is a very stretched kind of a concept, I tended to agree at that particular point of time. You keep this company, he's your closest friend, there is something in his possession, you are going together for a particular rave party. I think there are enough reasons for giving a remand. And another thing, my last point is, today, Jyoti, the world has changed so drastically. The young have graduated from alcohol to drugs. There are 50 million users of drugs in country. 219 Social Justice Ministry report says this. And what is happening today is the drugs are being accessed through a dark web net where very few get the access. And the payment is done through Bitcoin. And the service is through courier delivery. So in a situation like this, when you are going as celebrity with your friends, I think is the most dangerous thing you're doing. Of course, you'll be marked by the company which you keep.
But Mr. Azad, can I just ask you, if you went to the Kumbh Mela just a few months ago in April in Haridwar, you must have found, or you would have found, hundreds of sadhus smoking up. Charas, ganja, I don't know about anything else, but charas, ganja is par for the course. So why don't you put them? Why doesn't the NCB pick them up and put them in jail?
Well, ganja is also used very liberally in my state, Bihar, all along the plains below the Himalayas. In fact, in many American states, cannabis and all this is being regularized. And I think it's about time that it should be regularized in India too. But that's a different thing altogether. And
but why doesn't the NCB pick up these sadhus is my question.
Well, the NCB picks up only the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other places. And it's a fact that even Bollywood, there is hard drug which is being used, but NCB has not been able to get access there. Similarly, it doesn't have access to the Kumbh, or for whatever reasons, it does not go there.
Because, Mr. Luthra, the same question to you. Go ahead. Yes.
I think I need to clarify one thing. When I mentioned that he's the child of a celebrity, then I'm going to tell you a little anecdote. What happens practically is that when prominent people or their family members get picked up, there is a lot more media glare. The resultant pressure is on the investigating agency to justify the arrest and justify their action. And the individual who gets caught in the middle, who is put to custody, then becomes like a tool in the system, pushed from corner to corner and suffering as a consequence. Having said that, I don't think it's about that he was targeted because of who his father is, but the fact is that it has definitely led to adverse and graver adverse consequences for him than most people. He, of course, has the right to move courts, and they move courts pretty fast, pretty expeditiously, which others perhaps would not have been able to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The issue that we really need to consider is the larger issue. You mentioned that other narcotics suppliers and other issues. Now, one of the issues is you had this major inflow of narcotics into Punjab. Why have we not acted adequately against the manufacturers and the suppliers and those who bring it in across the border? Or where there is large state smuggling over the dark web, why are we not going to the root of it?
I mean,
So my
3,000 kilograms of heroin was picked up in the Mundra port just around the same time that these young men were picked up on this cruise ship. But nothing has happened on that front.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of thing. You have to find a solution. Go and go to the source. Don't pick up random persons who may at most be called users. That's the point.
Mr. Azad?
I totally agree with Sidharth on that point. In fact, today, if you really see the larger issue, 83% of opium is being produced in Afghanistan, and this wretched Taliban has ramped up the protection over there. And today, the Golden Crescent is an evil supplier of all these drugs to India. And India today becomes the supply point, the transit point, and the consumption point. And we are having drones coming from Punjab to J&K with M16 rifles and drugs. These are the areas which NCB really needs to look into. Of course, they'll be intercepted first by the border agencies, but the large shipments. And today, time has come when NCB should make a public statement about the catch at Mundra Airport. There's no doubt about that. In fact, I hope somebody in RTI asks this question, right to information. What is the progress which is happening in this case?
Okay, so now let me ask you both to put on...
The only problem is they'll say it's investigation and therefore they won't be able to get an answer, Yashovardhan. Mr. Azad, that's the problem. And what we really need to target is, can it come through without the support of some authorities within the port? Question to be asked.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree.
So we have in this situation like this where you have thousands of kilograms coming in of heroin, of pure heroin coming in at Mundra port. Punjab, as Mr. Luthra said, you have, the authorities or the cops pick up heroin that's coming in all the time from the LOC, the line of control. It's very leaky LOC, if I may add. And then on the other hand, you have, a couple of grams of charas. I'm not getting into why or whether they should not have been there or not, of these young men on a cruise ship. But I want you both to put on your citizen's hat and answer this question. So, Mr. Luthra, a lot of people are saying that Aryan Khan has been picked up because he's Muslim. And the second question is that there is this jostling between the center and the Maharashtra government, which is, of course, not a BJP government in power.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that's an issue. It's not about the community. It's about a young man being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that is what we need to see it as. And we need to solve it as a legal problem, not as a communal problem at all.
Okay. Do you want to comment on the fact that the NCB is a central agency and that in Maharashtra...
Of course it's a central agency. No, I don't think so. So I don't agree with that point of view at all. And I think that's unfortunate. We can't make it individual or religion based. It's a legal issue which needs solving as a legal issue, as a human rights issue, as a citizen's issue. And that's what needs to be seen.
Mr. Azad, you have the last word.
I, first of all, don't think there is any communal element involved in this. It has got nothing to do with the fact that he is Aryan Khan. And secondly, as far as the NCB is concerned, I must say this feeling of state versus the center has come up in quite a few respects, whether it was after the elections in Bengal or it is connected with the non-BJP states. But the way the ministers of the Agadi government are talking against the NCB and doing their own investigation, that is extremely unfortunate. I don't think, some of the NCB officers may be a little over enthusiastic and trying to cross the line, but that does not mean that in any case, center is involved and it should lead to a kind of a center-state dispute.
Because the one minister in the Maharashtra government has also accused Samir Bankhere, the NCB top cop who's investigating the case, of saying that he's been in the Maldives and, and all kinds of allegations are also being made against the NCB. And that is bringing, I think, that is sort of making the case even more convoluted than it is.
That's a very, very irresponsible statement by the minister. If somebody has gone to Maldives, he's already given a statement that he had gone with government permission. And as far as Dubai is concerned, he's completely denied it, something which can be verified immediately. So I don't think a minister should get into this kind of irresponsible statements.
Right, Mr. Luthra, you have the absolute last word.
I said there is an issue about people making statements, and I think these investigations which get highlighted by the media and which get highlighted by investigating agencies and where people go to the press cause more harm to the individual and the investigation than anybody else. We really need to look at this, dehorse the personalities and look at it simply through the prism of the individual who is incarcerated and, in my view, unjustly incarcerated. And the extraneous factors sometimes have an overarching influence on the determination of these matters, and that's a problem. We need to come out of that mindset.
But you see this again and again, like in, say, Riya Chakravarti, who was in custody for a couple of months because her former boyfriend, who committed suicide or allegedly committed suicide, was, there was nobody to speak up for her. Her brother was in jail. I mean, Mr. Azad, this unfortunate set of circumstances is making you guilty and not innocent, and although it's the other way around.
In fact, in Riya Chakravarti's case, I think it was a one-sided, absolutely biased kind of an investigation. And the fault lay with Bihar police, filing an FIR, and it led to a lot of problems of jurisdiction. Of course, court tried to step in, but today we have a problem if something happens in Maharashtra and somebody files an FIR in Kerala. I mean, that's not the way the police can actually function. I mean, Riya was hounded, and in that particular case, I think a simple case of suicide was turned into something so huge that today even the CBI has not been able to file anything of that. There is no charge sheet, there is no word of any investigation, and nothing has happened after that. So I totally agree with you. In that case, it was a total faux pas.
So, Mr. Luthra, why doesn't the Supreme Court or the High Court put out, strictures against, whether it's the NCB in this case or in the case of Riya Chakravarti when she was, incarcerated for so many weeks? I mean, there must be some remedy, isn't it? That somebody's sort of fundamental rights have been.
The point is, it's not that. I'll tell you what. The moment you go through the rigors of the criminal justice system, even if you succeed, even if you get released, which individual has the wherewithal or the mental strength or the physical stamina or the financial support to be able to fight and say they were wrongly put to custody or trauma? And the remedy under the law 182 is so weak. There was an attempt by the Law Commission to say we should have a stronger remedy, but we really need to have a mechanism against unjust arrests, against unjust detention, against unjust prosecutions. And that really needs a redressal within the system. And this has to be done across the board. Rich or poor, all have to be protected from an abuse of the process of law.
Absolutely. And bail must, not jail, which is supposed to be the underpinning of our judicial system, absolutely, must be, underlined by, I think, the Supreme Court, no less. But gentlemen, Yashovardhan Azad and Sidharth Luthra, thank you both so much for your time, for speaking to me in the debate.
Thank you.